David, welcome to the Go for Launch podcast.
Brandon, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I always start off by asking my guests, where are you in the world today?
Geographically, I am just outside of Dallas, Texas.
All right. So no snow for you, right?
No snow.
We're recording on February 4th, 2021. So you and I both dodged the large snowstorm that hit the U.S. this week. So that's good news.
Yes, it is. For us, for a lot of people are having to deal with it, though. I feel for them.
Oh, so do I. All of our friends up north and in the Midwest, especially. But I want to talk about your background. That was a lengthy intro that I just gave, and I want to talk about your moment of truth, if you will. What caused you to make the decision to step away from that clinical dental practice that you'd had for over 20 years?
Brandon, it was my daughter's health situation. 12-year-old only child. My daughter Jennifer had undergone already previously in her earlier years dealing with and surviving high-risk leukemia, epileptic seizures, and at age 12. She was going through another health crisis with end-stage liver failure. Subsequently, was blessed to receive a liver transplant. And it was during the time that she was recovering where I finally had time away from the busyness of all the things I was doing in my life, my practice, doing what I thought I should be doing, and having time to actually sit and reflect, watching her in her hospital room with the respirator on and with the IV lines and all the medications she was taking to help make this liver transplant a successful surgery. I had time to think and really reflect on, where was my time going? Was I today I call it, Brandon, was I winning at the right game?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the game I was playing was one that many of us play in business and life, and it's kind of set by society's standards or industry success definitions is, how big a business do you have and how many employees and what's your revenue run rate and all this other stuff. And then here I have my daughter who's already survived, some major illnesses in life, and she's going through another one. I'm thinking, how many more chances does this guy, Dad, have? And so that was my defining moment.
Wow. I mean, there's so much to it. And of course, in your bio, I read also that you'd kind of started this side hustle years ago with your dad, investing in one rental property, and then you parlayed that into many more. So you had a little bit of a base to jump from. Was that difficult though, going from, I'm a dentist and I've spent all this time in school and gosh knows how much that investment was worth and all the hours and all the, professionalism you had to put into it. How was that, making that leap from saying, I'm not going to do the dental practice anymore and I'm going to focus on real estate and other ventures?
Yeah, those are some of the trappings I feel like, Brandon, that we get sucked into is our identity in life oftentimes becomes, what we do. The career, the letters after our name, the business we have, our recognition in the community or with our colleagues. That drives our identity. And the problem with that is that it's like a sunk cost fallacy. Yes, you put a lot of time and investment into an education or into a business or a career path or whatever it might be, and to consider leaving that, deviating from that path when society would say, well, you're too young to do that. You're supposed to go to retirement age. Yeah, it's not easy. And I'll be honest with you and our listeners today and tell you that if for not my daughter's health crisis, I probably wouldn't have made that shift. I probably wouldn't have not have made that move. And so my message to people today is, I don't want people to have to go through what I did, but a lot of people will go through adversity in their life. And I say today, use that as an opportunity. And that sounds like a misnomer, right? Adversity, challenges in life, use that as an opportunity. What are you talking about? Say, don't push back against it. I mean, let doors open. Don't be afraid to move through. And that's where kind of the title of my book came is what's your next is life is not going to be just a straightforward moving, in a linear progression to whatever you thought your life was supposed to be. It's going to have setbacks and tests and your character and elements that we can't control, like COVID, like this last year. I mean,
Right.
Things will happen in life that, if you're a big planner like I am, very logical, very rational, like I want to plan everything out. Because that's kind of how I'm built, engineer type, dentist. I have to do that. But life doesn't necessarily give us that. We have to be willing to engage alternative paths, being flexible, being adaptable, I think is a key here, which I had to learn to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you see as some of the big changes that are happening in society right now, and how are those going to affect that future economy? We mentioned one big, huge elephant that we are all
Yeah.
dealing with, COVID. But what are things like COVID and these other big roadblocks and challenges going to mean for wealth creators of the future?
Well, we've seen our world and society just change. Information technology today. I mean, just look in just a year what changes. Go back 10 years and look at the technology changes we've had. So the world is moving geometrically so much faster than when I was younger in my life, 3 4 decades ago, when you could look ahead and things weren't changing so fast. So you didn't have to be really able to pivot quickly. You could kind of move slowly and morph through, and changes would happen, but you could kind of glide through life. And today that's not the way it is. So whatever we think we're doing today, whatever our life is, our business, our career path, I think we have to be prepared with that flexibility I'm talking about to be able to iterate because it's not only adversity and challenges, but sometimes there's opportunities. And if we've got this mindset that life is supposed to be very linear, that you get into a certain pathway and you just follow that path, I think that's the worst thing to do. I think life today has got to be looked at as evolvement and really being willing and open to explore new frontiers. Not saying that you give up security of the things you're doing, but I'm a guy that says you should do some things simultaneously. Not sequentially. Sequentially means, I get a job, I start a family, I build up some momentum, I have some security, maybe I have a home. Then I'll start investing, or when I get my kids through school, or that sequential pathway can be a big inhibitor, I think, to this ability to pivot. You've got to be able to do some things sequentially in life so that you've got the ability to make some pivots.
I totally agree with you, David. And unfortunately, I think a lot of folks your age and my age, and I'm going to guess we're around the same, decade. I'm in my mid 50s, and our generation and the one before us, especially, was taught that was the path. You go to school, you put your nose to the grindstone, you get a degree, you get out, you try to get a job, you try to keep that job for as long as possible.
Right.
Our parents' generation was the ones that would get the classic job for 30 years and retire with a gold watch and a pension plan or whatever, right?
That's it.
I think our generation, yours and mine, started to realize maybe that's not the only way. And so we started to pivot with some entrepreneurship and things like that. Fortunately, we've seen many great examples of that, whether it's Mark Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs, who dropped out of college and started these multi-billion-dollar companies. They're the outliers. But the rest of us, even the younger generation, do you really think, David, that a lot of people are held back by something, whether it's fear or that still ingrained notion that, yeah, I need to go do what my parents told me to do, which is go be a dentist, go be a lawyer, be a doctor, be a business person. I have to follow the path. How do you feel about people? What do you tell the younger folks, especially, like, hey, scrap the plan and be more flexible, like you're suggesting?
Yeah, I tell kids today, and of course they're across the board in terms of, some feel like they really know what they want to go do. Whether their background has been their environment, maybe they've done well scholastically or something in school, so they feel like they want to be a doctor, engineer, or whatever it might be. That's great, nothing wrong with that. Others, are still trying to find themselves. I think that's probably the vast majority is not sure what I want to do. The world is very confusing today, and we hear stories about kids going on to 4 years of higher education and having a lot of debt, student loan debt, and the problems that ensues. So what I tell young people today, Brandon, is don't be in such a hurry, because we're always in a hurry, right? We're all in a hurry. We want to accomplish and achieve and feel like we're moving up the societal rings of success in life, and that means the education, then the job, the career path, all these things, and having a family. I tell young kids today is, look, take some time. Now, don't waste your time. Don't fritter it away, but just an aside, I wrote another book called The Apprentice Model, and it was written for young people to give them an alternative way of looking at life, and also their mentors and teachers, so they can have conversations about the fact there are all alternative paths to just this go straight to school in the degrees. And so to take some time off and find other people, mentors, specifically in this case, mentors that would have businesses, any kind of different business, but a business where a mentor would take on a young person as an apprentice. Apprentice means you might get paid something nominal, a stipend. This is not going to be your career move, but it's really a chance to get, I believe, a real life education before you go on to what your next is. And that could involve 4 years and graduate school and whatever it might be. Or it might be, you know what? There's a world called entrepreneurship out here. And I know people, and I met some business people that didn't do all this education. And actually, what they're doing in life seems kind of fun. And I've got a knack for that. So figuring out who you are, I think, in life, what your strengths are, and how to focus on those is very important. And I think we can do that throughout life. I don't care if you're already in career path like I was, or your business, but the ability to continue to evolve other skill sets that you have within you that maybe got compressed a little bit because of the pathway we took. I mean, I've always had entrepreneurial aspirations in my life, and and they got a little bit forestalled in dental school training because it's very, very rigid. This is the way you do it. Boom, 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 boom. But I think the real estate side, as you alluded to, allowed me to have that secondary expression of a plan B. I didn't call it that back then, but I developed new skill sets, learned how to be a better investor of money that I had more control over. And it gave me a little bit better segue when I made the decision to leave practice. It was still hard, as you mentioned earlier, but it was easier because I didn't have the total financial compression that one might have, saying, well, if I stop doing this, then who's going to pay the bills?
Right. Yeah. So you picked real estate, and I think a lot of people see that as possibly sexy. Wow, I'm going to own property, or I'm going to be invested in, rental property and things like that. On the other flip side of that coin, it seems a little scary and daunting to think, oh my God, am I going to be a landlord or whatever? But, can you just describe to us, David, some of the advantages that you saw and still see in investing in real estate? And for the common person, are we talking about you need $100,000 to go out and invest in something, or at what level can the average person participate in real estate investing?
Yeah, I think the key is, Brandon, is who you are and where you are in life. And a young person, for example, who has more time than money and maybe doesn't have all the responsibilities of a family or lifestyle expenses that have gone up high, could actually start out boots on the ground and get started in sweat equity in building up a reasonable rental portfolio. Houses, that's where I started. That's where I started. I learned how to leverage good debt to buy houses. So that was when I was young. Now today, I don't do it that way. I've evolved, and people in my group, Freedom Founders, who are other business owners who are looking to diversify their income and their assets, investment assets. I don't want them to do it that way. So yes, I mean there's different shades of investing. So if you're younger and you've got the propensity and the time, I think it's a great model. I know a lot of young people that are in their 20s and 30s and 40s who never went past high school, but they just got real affinity towards that entrepreneurship model, and real estate can be a great way to go. But if you're already in business and you have with discipline, you have savings or money in retirement accounts, that kind of thing, you can also successfully invest in real estate through other people. Now, the key is which people, due diligence, underwriting, a lot of things that we won't go into here today, of course. But I found real estate to be something that I liked because it did give me a control factor. I'm a little bit of a control freak, but control comes with some baggage. It comes with management. If you're not going to do it, someone else is going to do it, and you have to manage them. There's got to be some amount of underwriting of the people you might invest with, joint ventures, partnerships, syndications, another way to go. So really, number one is, I would say, the character of the people, their track record. And then number two would be the different types of asset classes you can get involved in today. There's a lot of diversification, and it is really about the business of your money. People focus on the business of their business, which is, today, active income, paying the bills, providing for one's family. But so little focus is put on the business of one's money or the future. Again, I think it's something that needs to be somewhat done in tandem. And too many people abdicate that, I think, to third parties who it's kind of a roll of the dice. Is it going to work or is it not? A lot of volatility in the marketplace today, a lot of uncertainty, that where I try to encourage people to develop some financial acumen. And real estate was just a platform that did very well for me. But I spent time on it. I definitely did.
Yeah, I can tell. So let's stick with that real estate topic for just a moment more.
Sure.
How do you find good investment opportunities? Because I think the young person's route you were suggesting to me sounded like the fixer-upper. If you could just scrape together a little bit and buy cheap properties, fix them up, flip them, kind of thing. Is that
right?
But you're then talking about more of an evolution where you're not buying the house, individually and having to go in there and tear boards out and do all kinds of sweat equity. There's other ways. So can you just explain to us some of the different ways people can go without just going on Google or driving through neighborhoods endlessly?
Right. I think that's where investing in network, which is something that I've done my whole life, and I did that, in dentistry and real estate. So, who do you know? Who do you know that can connect you with resources or opportunities where you can collaborate? And the synergy allows different people to bring different expertise, time, capital to the equation. You can do that in businesses too, right? I mean, business, you can have partnerships or different ways to do it. So in real estate, the way we do it today, or the way I do it, is through people that I know, that I've built relationships with, that have a specialization in, could be single family houses in a certain market that we would believe would be a good demographic market. The economy is relatively strong there. The political environment is conducive to business. Let's put it that way. But this person has a whole business around procuring, lead generation, finding the right properties, the right area. They already have a contractor system in place, so they're very scaled. So they acquire the properties, they renovate them to a specified level that you agree upon, and then they also place the tenant. They manage the tenant, all those things. Now they're going to take a management fee off of it, but again, that's where you say, well, where's my time most valuable? Is it doing my business, my career, my dentistry, or would it be learning how to manage tenants? At this point in my career, not managing tenants would not be my focus. Now that's the individual property side. There's also people that do syndications. So larger projects like multifamily apartment houses, for example, or self-storage units, mobile home park communities, senior assisted living centers. There's lots of asset classes that people might have an affinity towards, but they don't want to go learn the nuts and bolts of how do I find an apartment complex now, how do I manage it, and all those things take a lot of time. It's really a business. So if you know people who make a market for those kinds of assets, they're really good. They focus on those. They've got their own network so that they're getting deal flow or access to things that we wouldn't find on the public markets, the MLS, for example. Then you can participate as a very passive investor in those types of opportunities. So that's really, two different looks at it. If you want to be more passive versus, the young person who could do the flipping and the renovating really hands-on until they build up enough equity, and then they start to, develop systems and maybe start building up long-term passive cash flow by having their own rental portfolio.
Got it. Now, is this the type of thing that you do with your Freedom Founders program? Is the real estate syndication kind of investment, or what?
It is. It's really, when I left dentistry, Brandon, I didn't really know what I was going to do next. It was, I wasn't afraid of it, but I really wanted to spend time with my daughter. So that's where my focus was. I wasn't afraid, but with a vacuum there in where I wasn't having to do all the time, I had some people that colleagues in dentistry and medicine who understood why I sold the practice because of my daughter's situation. So I get it, David. I mean, it makes sense, but how did you do that? I mean, I was relatively young to be selling and getting out of my profession. And so, David, how did you do that? Well, I didn't let a lot of people know that I did real estate on the side. I kept that kind of boxed. I was a dentist by day and kind of real estate by nights and weekends, if you want to look at it that way. I didn't mix the two. I didn't have tenants coming to my dental office to pay the rent. Let's put it that way. Right. I didn't want that. I needed to keep a professional side there and then have my investing side separate. I didn't mix the two, so people didn't know I did that. So when I answered the question, I had a handful. Well, David, could you show me how you did that? Well, yeah, I could teach you what I did. But of course, as I told you earlier, Brandon, I started in my 20s, out there on the street, and actually did the management and brought contractors in and mowed lawns myself. These doctors don't want to do that. So I said, well, better you just to piggyback on some of my deals. In other words, I have a network. I find deal flow. If you want to be a capital investor, I'll plug you in. I'll give you a set return that you can count on. You get first money out, but you can follow along and see what you like about that. Well, they realized that they didn't want to go out and make the effort to build the network and do all the things I've been doing for 25 years. So they thought, well, this kind of investing through other people makes sense. And then I had enough people say, well, David, could you help me? And I said, well, wait a minute. I don't want to go back into a business where I want to get, on the ground and build up a lot of portfolio. I really didn't want to go that direction. So I thought, how could I leverage my experience, but also my network of other people? And I think this is a key in everything in life is rather than trying to do everything by yourself. I'm talking to our listeners here today, is, we all have great ideas. And yet typically we think about, well, if I got this great idea, then I need to go do this myself. I got to figure out all the pieces to put this together, a business idea. Maybe it's a new innovation of an iteration of some model, or it could be a software app. I got to do this myself. No, if you got the vision and the aptitude for something you think the market would like, then why don't you collaborate with other people that can bring the pieces to the table that you don't either like to do or you don't want to do well? So in my case, I didn't want to go out and create a team or business that'll go out looking for properties, single family houses or apartment houses, self-storage. I knew enough people in the marketplace, Brandon, who already had niches there, had track records. They'd gone through the 2008 downturn. They knew what to do and what not to do. But I could bring them to my doctors and create, a consortium, a community where we just connect the dots. And I would teach the frameworks and kind of be a translator between what I knew the doctors wanted is more passive income, but also inflation hedges, against with equities and real estate, but they don't want to have to be hands-on. And my real estate friends always need private capital because the best deals you have to move quickly on. You need to secure them. We call it, take them down, and then they go back on the back end and they'll get long-term financing from a bank. Banks are great for long-term, low interest rate financing today, but to get deals under acquisition, oftentimes you have to go quickly. You have to move fast because
so you got to have money in hand. You can't
have money in hand, and even long term with bank financing, the syndicators still need equity money. So that's what the private capital is where that comes from, and so it just kind of blossomed over the years to the community, and it's kind of what my book's about. It's like shifts in life will happen to all of us, whether we have control of them or not, and don't allow those to shut you down. Use those opportunities to open a door and not be afraid to take some steps forward in something else that could lead to, an involvement in your life. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's the side hustle that could become your full-time hustle, right? Exactly. In your case. But I do the same. I encourage people to have those side hustles. And like you said, David, you don't have to do it all yourself. I've been guilty of that at times in my life when I thought, I have to figure all of this out. Whether it's I have to figure out how to do the website, I have to do this, that, and the other thing. But over time, you realize there's a bunch of resources out there, whether it's Fiverr, whether it's, another type of one of those e-lances or, different services that you can hire professionals to do virtually anything, right? At this point in time. So, or like you said, go ask an expert, see if you can internship or be an apprentice with them. I think it's a great thing when young people come to me, for example, and say, I might be interested in doing digital marketing. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little bit more about it? I'm happy to do that. Right. And if they hang out with me for a couple of days, they may find, you know what, I don't like that. And so that's great. They didn't waste a whole lot of time. They can move on to something else. On the other hand, they might start getting some skills. They can help me out. I can help them out.
Absolutely. No, I love that collaboration. Yeah. Something that's interesting too is I didn't know this at the time, but when I look back on my own life, Brandon, is I'm very much a visionary. I'm not really good at taking things all the way to the finish line. Now, as a dentist, I would sometimes have patients that had big cases, right? And I learned how to do them. I took the CE to do them, so I could do them. But I realized doing those big cases wore me out. I mean, the energy drain versus I like to get in and get out. So today I get to be kind of an orchestrator, but as you said earlier, what I do is I bring the other people in that can drive the orchestration of the problem that we're solving for and take it to fruition. Yeah. And that's the point that you just made is don't try to do it all yourself, is find other people that can come in and support whatever you're good at. And then the synergy of the whole is what really can go to market with whatever you've got and can really allow for some really fun, because look, there's always going to be problems in the marketplace. Always more volatility, more disruption, more uncertainty today than we've ever seen, which means there's a lot of problems to solve. And that's where I think the fun of entrepreneurship comes into place. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And I think at every level in any profession, you got to be thinking about how are things like artificial intelligence, robotics, Internet of Things, all these things are going to impact so many professions. I know it's happening in digital marketing every single day. It's probably happening in dentistry, where, sure, newfangled gadgets are coming out that take the place of the assistant or whatever. So, people's jobs are getting changed dramatically. And I think over the next 5 to 10 years, especially. But speaking of, let's just kind of segue into your book. I want to learn more about what's in that. It's called What's Your Next? The Blueprint for Creating Your Freedom Lifestyle. So in your case, your next was dentistry, stop, next, real estate, and some other stuff. What's in this book and what can readers glean from it?
It's really a book that can help people dive in, and really in any age. This is my book that really crosses a lot of generations, but it could be young people we talked about, it could be people in mid-career, it could be people towards the end of what they think is their long-standing career. But the challenge for those people is, I've been wearing this hat. I've been, this person, this business. I take this off. I sell that business, and who am I? What am I going to do now? Because so much focus went into being the best that they could be at this one thing. That's great, but again, they didn't expand their skill sets. And so what the book does for any age is helps ask the person the questions, help them identify some other strengths, some other passions they have, and some frameworks to help them develop those alongside of whatever else they're focused on. Again, dentistry was my formal education. I took no classes in college, or certainly in dental school, about finance or real estate. They didn't offer those. For some reason, they didn't offer those in dental school. And so I invested in myself, which I'm a big believer in, outside of my formal education. I think, again, we think about education as being a number one place to invest, but self-education outside of your primary area is a big one. So my book talks about these pillars of invest in yourself, invest in your business, whatever that business is. Certainly optimize that business and make it a business that better serves your lifestyle versus the other way around. And we could go deep in that rabbit hole. Invest in relationships, the collaboration we just got through talking about. Invest in the business of your money, investing your capital. So now you have money that you've set aside. It's your savings. It's your retirement. Well, how can you make that money better work for you again? Because that's a big construct of what we do in Freedom Planners. And then finally, what's your real purpose in life? What's your legacy? Where do you really want to have impact? Not that you're not having impact somewhere today, but I think for most of us, once we can kind of get beyond that financial safety barrier, and it takes different time periods for different people, but I try to help people get there faster so they have some relief from the having to drive for the active income. If you can get to where you have of more passive income, then you can really open the door and figure out, what am I really about here? And that's really where the book came from. There's a lot of finance constructs in the book because I believe that's an important part of giving people freedom. But the other pieces, investing in your business, your relationships, your capital, and your legacy, I think those need to be done along the way. Not equally, but different time periods. But you've got to be thinking about all of those all along your life. And if you have that kind of vision and framework wherever you are in life, then I don't believe you'll get caught in a dilemma where an adversity or a challenge hits you, and you're all of a sudden you're thrown off and go, what do I do now? You've developed enough other assets, these freedom assets that give you the ability to iterate, to be adaptable, to show some strong resiliency amidst all the other chaos where a lot of people didn't set themselves up that way, and they get kind of sideswiped and can be in a bad place for a good part of their life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've talked to you, I've talked to others in similar professions like chiropractic before, a couple of episodes ago, and he was talking about how many of his peers would work themselves to death basically, and get to a point where they're kind of painted in the corner and they're in their 50s or 60s with their chiropractic business and going, man, I have no plan B like you did. How do I even get out of this thing? And he helps them, maneuver that. But do you think, have you seen examples, David, of people that are in their 50s or 60s or even beyond that maybe did wait a little bit too long, but were still able to pivot?
Well, I think the biggest problem that happens for a lot of them is they're better off than they think. I believe it's in the ability to orchestrate your capital outside of a business. When you're in business and you have active income, as long as you're healthy and you can make money, right? But it's when can you let go? When the big question is, when do I have enough? Mm-hmm. And the traditional financial model is accumulate. 401ks, retirement plans, whatever. Just stack it up. Put it on Wall Street. And problem with Wall Street, it's up and then it down and then it's up. We've gone through a long big cycle, but then it historically goes back down again. And I think people need to learn how to invest for the cash flow, which is why I love real estate. But a good business can also be cash flow, but real estate provides for that cash flow. So backing into what they need to live their lifestyle. What's that monthly? I call it their burn rate, their freedom number. What's that? What is that? Is it $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month, $15,000 a month, $20,000 a month? I don't care what it is, But when you know what that number is, then you can back into it. Well, how much do I need in assets that I can deploy that will provide this amount of return on a predictable basis? Now I can kind of see where I could start to transition out versus I never know if I have enough because we've got a higher cost of living and inflation, healthcare costs, higher taxes. I mean, you can name all the things out there that are uncertain that keep people going longer than they probably need to. And again, I think the problem too is as long as you're having to be focused on that hamster wheel, that treadmill of just working, never knowing when to quit, how can you ever have the opportunity to expand your horizons to a next? I see so many people that come into our group that once they have that certainty, it changes their life dramatically. Their relationships with their family, their wife, their kids, their ability to start having other side hustles or volunteer or other impact. It just changes people's lives. And I hate to have people get too late in life where they can't do that.
Right. Well, hopefully somebody's listening and going, man, I need my next. I need to figure that out. So, David, where can people find out more about Freedom Founders and you and also your book?
So Freedom Founders, very easy, freedomfounders.com. The book, pre-order right now, Amazon. It'll be shipping on February 23rd, so you can pre-order the book, What's Your Next, on Amazon, or also go to findyournext.com. That's for the book, and we've got a lot of bonuses there as well that people can obtain along with the book. Just additional frameworks, things that I provided to help them use the book as a guide.
Excellent. Well, this couple of weeks from now, the book will be out in the wild. So go grab your copy over on Amazon. Dr. David Phelps, thank you so much for all your insights today and for being such a energetic and knowledgeable guest on the Go for Launch podcast.
Brandon, it's been a real pleasure. Thanks for having me.